Welcome to Spells and Spoilers, the podcast where we dive into all things supernatural. This season, we're starting with Charmed, so grab your spellbook and your popcorn, and let's get magical. Welcome to Spells and Spoilers, a rewatch and reread podcast. I'm Aleacia.
And I'm Elizabeth. This season, we'll go minute by minute through every episode of Charmed, giving you all the details and diving into the magic, the drama, and everything in between.
That's right. Each week we're going to break down one episode of Charmed, and today we're starting with Season 1, Episode 6, The Wedding from Hell.
But before we get started, just a quick reminder to follow us on social media, subscribe to the podcast, and leave a review if you're enjoying our deep dive.
Okay, so before we get started, do you have any initial thoughts about the episode or the title, anything like that from The Wedding from Hell?
So I think the title was fitting. I do feel like it was a slow start, but it was overall pretty good. Definitely funny.
So I really enjoyed it. Well, I usually enjoy wedding content because if you don't know, I am a professional wedding planner. I own a wedding planning business. And so anything to do with weddings, I love to watch because I love to critique.
You get all giddy about
yes.
it.
I'm like, ooh, is this how I would do it? Is this how I would feel? All those things. So
what can you take from that and use in your own everyday business?
Yes, absolutely. So let's get into it. We start outside the Spencer house, and it's not really a house, it's like a mansion. But Allison is there, and Elliot walks up to her, and he's holding a rose, and he makes a joke, Mrs. Allison Spencer, I presume. And she says, "You mean Mrs. Allison Michaels Spencer, don't you?" And he asks if she wants to be alone. She says no, and he asks if she's getting cold feet. And she says, "No, Elliot, I am definitely not getting cold feet. I love you. You know that." "I don't know. It's just so overwhelming. I mean, after all these years of dreaming about us getting married, I just don't want anything bad to happen. That's all." And I thought the acting was so strange.
It was very scripted.
Yeah.
Instead of passionate.
Yes. It was very all of a sudden turned on a dime that it was this big cold deal. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, it was very awkward.
Yes. He suggests that they elope, which I think everybody does at some point during the wedding planning process. They suggest just not doing it and just eloping and being done with it. But she says that his mom would not allow that. While they kiss, Elliot's mom shouts, trying to get his attention, and Allison says, "Speak of the devil." And she walks up and says that she's been looking all over for them and asks if they got the marriage certificate yet. He says not yet, but they're going to go to City Hall tomorrow before the rehearsal dinner. Side note, I would never recommend getting your marriage certificate the day before your marriage. Never.
No.
At least 2 or 3 days. Not the day before. That's a really bad idea. Grace asks why not go today, and he says, "Mom, relax, will you? Why are you so bent about this?" And then Allison sees a blonde woman standing nearby looking very ominous and asks who that is. Grace says, "Oh no," and Elliot also asks who it is. Grace says, "It's someone I haven't seen for a long time." She walks over to her and says, "What are you doing here?" The woman says, "What's the matter? Did you forget about our little pact?" She says, "No, Jade, but I was hoping that you did. My God, you haven't aged in 20 years. Jade tells her that she could have asked for eternal youth. Instead, she chose wealth, power, and all of this. She says, "You've had a good life, haven't you?" Jade's friend, I guess?
Minion.
I'm
not sure what she is. At first, I kind of got a intimate relationship between the two.
I kind of thought maybe, because we find out later that this is a pattern for Jade, right? So I kind of thought maybe this was one of her kids.
Okay, I didn't think about that.
But I don't know if that's true. So she walks up. Anyway, her name's Kirsten. She walks up and asks where they're going. And Jade tells her to have the butler show her to their rooms and to tell him that Mrs. Spencer was expecting them. She leaves, and Grace says, "You just can't move in here. People will be suspicious. What will I say?" And Jade tells her to tell the truth. "Say your son has had a change of heart. That was our deal, remember? Don't worry, Elliot won't even know what you did until it's over." And Grace sticks her hand out and uses her powers, and Elliot collapses to the ground. Allison starts screaming for help, which I did think was like decent, I guess. At least she was like had an emotion about it.
I feel like it was like an awkward scream though. It was as if like not a panicked scream.
Yeah.
It was more of a somebody broke in my house and there they are scream, or I don't know.
You were so particular about people's reactions.
I'm sorry,
to things.
like make it real. You want to reel in the audience, like give me something.
On the screen we time jump and it says 1 week later and we are at the manor. Prue is knocking on the bathroom door. Piper is in there and we cut into the bathroom and Piper is holding a pregnancy test. Mm-hmm. She says, I'm almost done. Prue asks her to define almost, and she says, just give me another minute. And then she reads the box and says, or 2. Prue says, you're positive?
Which
Piper
is
says, I hope not. She says, I cannot be late today. And Piper says, I know the feeling.
I do feel like this episode was probably the funniest so far.
Yeah, it was definitely had some interesting little clips.
Yes.
Prue says that her first biannual auction starts tomorrow and she wants to do a good job. And Piper says she knows, but just to use the bathroom downstairs, all of her stuff is down there. She can borrow all of her stuff. Prue leaves and Phoebe walks up to the bathroom and she knocks on the door and asks if there's any hot water left. And that will be like a running theme throughout the episode. Yeah. Piper throws the pregnancy test box into the trash and then opens the door and leaves.
Which I feel like
was dumb.
Yes. You knew that one of your sisters at some point was going to go in. Why would you leave that test right on top?
Yeah, really. At least like
dig it in.
Tuck it under a little. You're dumb.
Like we've all done that.
Yes.
You know, like don't leave it on top unless you want someone to find it.
Yeah, really. Might as well lift it on the counter.
Yeah, exactly.
Phoebe asks if she's in for a cold shower. And Piper says at certain times in our lives, a cold shower is probably a good thing. Phoebe says, not 3 mornings in a row, it isn't. So Piper leaves and Phoebe walks into the bathroom. She starts brushing her teeth and then she notices the pregnancy test box in the trash immediately. And she picks it up and then she has a premonition of a demon being born. Mm-hmm. And then we cut to credits. In the manor kitchen, Piper is cooking. She's got like trays of hors d'oeuvres all over the counter. Me too. That's me prepping for a wedding. Just junk everywhere. A mess. Event planning comes with a lot more stuff than you would think it does.
I believe it though.
The phone rings and Piper answers it. And she hangs up and says that maybe Phoebe can help her cater the Elliot Spencer wedding tomorrow, because Chef Moore is on his way to France. And since technically the contract is with Quake, he is off the hook and she's on the line. She says, now I have to tell one of the most richest families in the city that the chef they hired can't do their wedding. They're stuck with me and I hope they go for it. Prue says, bright side, who else can they hire in 24 hours? Piper, it's not the end of the world. True. Mm-hmm. Who else are they going to hire? Phoebe walks in and asks what's not the end of the world. And Prue says, Piper's problem. Phoebe says, oh, you know too? He says, she just told me. How do you know? Piper can definitely handle this. Frankly, I don't think anyone will even notice. And Phoebe thinks they're talking about the demon baby.
Yes, so you can clearly see it on her face.
So
like,
shocked.
What?
Piper turns to Phoebe and says, I thought maybe you could help me. And Phoebe's like, me? What can I do? Yes. Piper says, pick up some supplies, tie some bows, offer moral support if I panic and freeze anything. $10 an hour. Prue says, oh, I'd take it. Good luck with the wedding. And Phoebe goes, okay, were you guys really just discussing a wedding?
Like she's finally catching up. Like, wait a minute.
Yes. And Piper says, yeah, what did you think we were talking about? Phoebe says, Jeremy and his aftermath. You know, you slept with him. And I don't know why Piper isn't immediately like, did you find the box in the trash? Because she doesn't bring it up until later.
Yeah.
But like, if I took a pregnancy test and then somebody immediately was like, you slept with your boyfriend, I was just wondering about the aftermath of that, I'd be like, get out of the trash can.
Yes. Mind your own business.
Literally. Piper tells her not to ever mention that warlock's name again. She says, it's over. He's in demon hell. End of story. Wedding, yes. Warlocks, no. Am I clear? Good, because there's nothing in me that wants anything to do with Jeremy ever again. Piper walks out of the room and Phoebe picks up one of the hors d'oeuvres and Piper yells from the other room, "Don't touch those."
It's like that mother's intuition.
Yes. So Phoebe puts it back. Outside the Spencer house, Piper pulls into the driveway and stops beside the intercom. She says her name's Piper Hallowell and she's the caterer. The man on the other side says, "I have Chef Moore listed as a caterer." Piper tells him that there's been a change and she's got ice sculptures melting over wedding cake, so she has to get in now. The man tells her that someone will be with her in a moment, and the gates open and 2 security guards walk down the driveway. A priest appears at Piper's window and says, "Please, I have to get into the compound. This is a matter of utmost importance. I must get in." And the security guards grab the priest. The security guard says, "Father Trask, we've been expecting you." Piper says, "Hey, easy on the padre there, buddy." And the security guard tells her to go in. The priest yells, "She is the bearer of the demon child. Beware Hecate." And Hecate is like a real Greek goddess. And she is the goddess associated with witchcraft, magic, the crossroads, the underworld, and the night.
Interesting.
So I found it interesting that they like chose a real mythical creature to like base the character on. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. Maybe they did some history search on that.
Yeah, because I mean, she does have magic. Piper was like, "Okay, crazy man." She drives in. Bucklands, we're in Rex's office, and Prue and Hannah are looking at some items. Prue says it's a Aleacia warrior fertility goddess. Very rare, very powerful. The tribe believes that its mere presence would help a woman conceive. Hannah says, "You take it. My biological clock's not the one that's ticking."
That was so funny. Like, that was a slap. Like, wait, what?
Jeez.
Yes.
"Okay, Hannah, but I have a really cute boyfriend who is also an inspector. What do you have?" "Nothing."
Her boss.
Yeah, true.
Because something is going on.
There
right
is definitely
Like,
something, yes. But I don't know if Prue knows that.
Yeah.
So. And Rex walks in and tells her that her sister's there to see her. She's waiting in her office. Prue asks which one, and Rex says, "The one who upon seeing your office said, 'Damn, I should go back to college.'" Prue says, "Phoebe. Well, for once her timing's good. The fertility icon has been cataloged." Rex says, "I'm sorry, it's no longer available." And when Prue leaves, he turns to Hannah and says, "That was very careless of you. You should know for whom we acquired this." Hannah says, "Look, her sister's catering the wedding. Prue won't even be there." And then we cut into Prue's office, and Phoebe is sitting at Prue's desk talking on the phone. I want to know who she's talking to.
Yeah, because it never mentions it. Yeah.
No. Phoebe says, "Oh, gotta go." Hangs up the phone. She says, "This place rocks. No wonder you ever want to come home." Prue tells her to get out of the chair. Phoebe says, "I love you too. I love too that you found time to scribble a morning shower schedule for we Hallowell sisters. I noticed I'm last."
Which I thought was funny that she is scheduling shower time for everyone.
Yes. Well, to be fair, Phoebe, you don't have a job.
She can take a shower at 12 in the afternoon.
Literally. What do you have going on that's so important?
I mean, other than her looks.
Yes. Prue asks what she's doing there and says she thought she was helping Piper with the wedding. Phoebe says, "I am, but I need to talk to you." And Prue tells her that she has 5 minutes. Phoebe says, "I had a vision this morning, and in this vision, a thing was being born. So I started to think back, 6-8 weeks ago." And Prue accuses her of being pregnant and says that is why she came back from New York. Phoebe says, "No, but I shouldn't be surprised that you would think that. After all, I'm the irresponsible sister, the black sheep who always screws up, the dark cloud over the Hallowell household."
Because that's how Prue makes her feel. So how else is she supposed to take that?
It was definitely snappy, for sure. Prue starts to interrupt her, and Phoebe says, "Okay, I'm not pregnant." And Prue says, "Then why?" And Phoebe says, "Excuse me, I think I still have 2 more minutes. FYI, you have another sister who has had sex. Remember Jeremy, the guy who blew up in the attic, the warlock boyfriend? Think about it, Prue, because it wasn't me in that vision having the demon child. It was Piper. So if you won't believe me, you can believe my power." And then she turns and walks away, like all sassy.
Yes, she was very sassy. Rightfully so, though.
Yes. We are back outside the Spencer house, and Allison is there, and Grace storms up to her and tells her that she has to stop calling Allison. "Do you understand?" Allison says, do I understand? Are you kidding me? What the hell's going on? Why won't Elliot return any of my calls? Grace tells her that she can't explain, and Allison says, you better damn well explain, because I'm not leaving here until you do. I have called the police, the sheriff. Nobody will listen to me. Nobody believes me. She asks who Jade is, and Grace tells her she's an old acquaintance of the family. Allison says, I don't believe that. Elliot would have told me about her. Grace says, there are many things about our family that you will never understand. And Allison is like about to cry. And she says, then let Elliot explain it to me. If he's going to marry somebody else, I want to hear it from him. Grace tells her that it's over and Elliot does not love her anymore. She says, I'm sorry, but he's going to marry Jade Damone.
I know. Immediately, I was like, Damone? Really? Demon?
Oh, God.
Very, very ironic.
I'm sorry, but if I'm a Hallowell sister and I hear that her name is Jade Damone, I'm like, a demon. That lady's a demon.
Yes, literally. Like, even we are not even witches.
Yeah.
And we can catch on to that.
Yeah, speak for yourself.
As far as I know, okay. I have not discovered my powers yet.
In the Spencer house kitchen, Piper is telling a cook to keep the pot at a simmer, not a boil. And it is like at a rolling boil. So we're well past simmering.
Yes.
It is definitely overcooked now. Piper walks over to a table and puts her face in her hands, and Phoebe walks in carrying 2 bags of groceries. Piper asks if she got everything, and Phoebe says most of it.
I would be questioning, like, wait a minute, what do you mean most of it?
Yeah.
Like, I gave you a list for a reason.
Get everything or don't come back.
Yes, exactly.
Piper tells the cook, no, wait, I've still got buns in the oven. And Phoebe says, you're not kidding.
Oh, I love Phoebe in this episode.
Piper asks where she's been because she expected her to arrive over an hour ago. And Phoebe tells her that she went to see Prue. Piper said, at the auction house, what were you doing there? And Phoebe says, adding more bricks to the wall between us.
And I don't feel like Piper really caught on to that. Like, I think maybe she was just so caught up with work that she just went over her head.
Me at weddings, honestly.
Yeah.
The butler comes in and says that Mrs. Spencer and Miss Damone will see them now. Piper questions that. And she says, I thought the bride's name was Allison. And the butler says she does not like to be kept waiting.
His tone, like, I feel like Piper needed a backbone in that. Like,
yeah.
Don't talk to me like that.
Yeah, we're both the hired help here, buddy.
Yes. Like,
but they wanted me. You know?
like, I can easily quit and put you in a pickle.
Yeah, really.
You know? I was like, no.
That is why
did not like that tone.
Our contract has a harassment clause, and it includes everybody. Anybody at your property. If you're hateful to me, 3 strikes, you're out. I'm going home.
3.
I
get 2.
I do give them like a warning, and then, but like, we don't play.
And see, that's me. You get your warning, and then I'm done with you.
Yeah.
Like, not happening.
Well, I mean, I never want to leave an event. That is never the goal. But I also own the dang business, and I'm not going to put up with it.
And
like,
you shouldn't, even if you don't own it.
Yeah. 2023, we had like a series of like really bad events. Not like bad on our part or anything, but like an aunt who was crazy, or like a mom who was a momzilla or whatever. Or like it rained or whatever. And we had one, and the mom, I'm like there for like an hour, and the mom had already made me cry. And I was like, absolutely not. And I added that into my contract immediately following that.
Well, lesson learned.
Yeah. I was like, absolutely never again is that going to happen, because that's so embarrassing. I did tell that bride that if her mom didn't show, we were going to leave. And then they were mad that I told the bride that. And I was like, my contract is with the bride.
Yeah.
So if I'm going to leave, I have to tell the bride that. I'm sorry, but I do.
Yeah.
My contract is not with the maid of honor. It's with you.
Makes sense.
And it's your guest, you know? I was like, okay, well, rein in your mom. I don't know what to tell you. So we cut into the room. Jade, Grace, and a dressmaker are all in there. And Jade is wearing the wedding dress, and the dressmaker is like pinning the bottom of it. Grace says, my son is very lucky. You're going to make a beautiful bride, Jade. She says, thank you. And then the butler, Piper, and Phoebe walk into the room. The butler introduces Piper And Phoebe says, and her sister chopped liver. And Phoebe should have kept her mouth shut this whole time. I'm just going to say that.
I agree. But she was also standing up for her sister.
I mean, she was, but she was embarrassing. Absolutely not.
Yes.
If any of my staff would have done that, I would have flipped my lid. She says, Piper says, Mrs. Spencer, it's so nice of you to see me. Your dress, it's beautiful. I recognize that style anywhere. It's a Shiro, isn't it? Jade says, is it? And I wonder, is that not Allison's dress then? Because, like, she doesn't even know where it came from.
Yeah, she was very naive on that part.
Yeah.
And, I mean, I guess her ultimate goal is not what she's wearing.
Yeah. So I wonder if it's not Allison's dress, and that's the reason it's getting altered.
Yeah.
Yeah. Grace asks how things are going in the kitchen, and Piper says, right on schedule. The lobsters are arriving tomorrow morning. The hors d'oeuvres are ready. Chef Moore is in France, and the puff pastries are baking.
I love how she slipped that in. Like,
yes.
It flowed so well.
Yes. Both Jade and Grace kind of like scream, like, Chef Moore's gone. What's happening? And Piper tells them that she will be handling the catering. Grace says, Charles, get me my pill. Me. Oh. Jade says, my wedding, it's ruined.
Like, the way she said that, it was like she'd been planning this forever. Yeah. And it had been like, what?
I think they said it's like 2 weeks or 6 weeks or something like that. 6 days. It was 6 days.
Yeah.
Yeah. Piper says, oh my, no, I would never let that happen. I know you may have made the deal with Chef Moore, but I've been involved with every step of the preparation. So if you'll let me, I can guarantee a wedding that your children and grandchildren will talk about for generations. And then Phoebe, again, should have kept her mouth shut the whole time, says, okay. We don't need to talk about children just yet. Look, you don't know me. Hell, I barely know me. And she, like, laughs, and it's not the time. Like,
it's not,
no.
But it's still funny.
She says, okay, I do know my sister, and she's the best damn chef in the city. No one, and I do mean no one, puts the love and tender care that Piper puts into her cooking. So you should not only be grateful that Chef Moore bagged out, but you should consider yourselves lucky. And Jade says, like, in a really sassy voice, if there is even the slightest hitch, I will have your head. Kidding.
Spoiled much?
Yeah. Grace says, then it's settled. And Piper says, actually, there's one more thing. I just need to confirm the party trays for the bachelor and bachelorette parties tonight. It looks like no decision has been made yet about the type of deli sandwiches for the bachelor party. Jade tells her to decide whatever. Grace says that her son can make any decisions about his own bachelor party. And Jade says, then we'll ask him together, because ain't nobody going to see the groom before the wedding happens because he's under a spell. And Phoebe mentions that she thinks it's bad luck to see the bride before the wedding, but Piper, like, pinches her. She's like, absolutely, shut up. These people are mean as hell. They walk out of the room, and the dressmaker continues pinning Jade's dress, and Jade, like, turns, and the pin sticks straight into her leg, and Jade does not react at all.
Like, no flinch, no nothing.
Yeah. The dressmaker stops and stares at it in shock, and Jade is like, is there a problem? And the dressmaker's like, no, not a problem at all. I'm finished. Mm-hmm. Okay, bye.
And she got up and was out.
Yeah. Jade tells her to then go. And then we cut outside the Spencer's house. The security guards are there. And Darren, one of the security guards, runs over to a truck where the other security guards are standing and says that the priest got away. The head security guard, I guess, tells them to check the perimeters, go. He says, all sectors, code 3. Father Trask is on the grounds. Find him.
It was so staged.
Yeah. All the security guards kind of scatter, and then you see Father Trask is hiding inside the truck. And he takes off his coat and his collar and puts on, like, a worker jacket.
I feel like that would be one of the first places that I would look.
Really?
Because I've seen a lot of movies. I'm sure they've seen a lot of movies.
I feel like they were standing right in front of the truck, which is probably why they didn't look there. Because they were like, oh, he couldn't have snuck in here. We're super highly trained.
But again, people have seen movies.
Yes. And then he sticks this big long knife down his pants and
dagger
gets out of the truck. Yeah.
The way he put it in his pants too.
Yeah.
like
this is slow motion.
It's not a small dagger.
No.
It's like the size of a forearm, and he puts it directly like under his belly button in his pants.
Yeah.
And then he like crosses
Yeah, he doesn't even button the jacket. He just crosses it.
Like, I'm going to stick that to the left or right, or even put it in my pants behind me.
Yeah.
And not hold my stomach closed with my jacket.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was pretty comical.
The most suspicious way to wear a jacket is just crossed in front of you like that.
Yeah. It was pretty funny.
We cut inside the house, and Allison is sneaking into Elliot's room. Elliot is laying on a bed reading a magazine. It's like a Honeymooners or whatever magazine. And she sits on the bed. She says, "Oh, Elliot, what have they done to you?" He puts down his magazine, and he just like stares at her blankly. Mm-hmm. And she says, "Listen to me, Elliot. You can't go through with this wedding. Jade doesn't love you. She barely even knows you." And then Grace, Jade, and Kirsten all walk in. Jade says, "Well, if it isn't Allison." And Elliot kind of like sparks to life a little bit. And he's like, "Allison?" She's like, "Yes." Jade tells them not to just stand there, to call security. Allison says not to bother because she was just leaving. And Kirsten says that she will show her the door. And they leave. In the hallway, the alarm is going off. And Piper and Phoebe are running down the hallway. Piper asks what happened that's causing the alarm to go off, and Father Trask walks by them. Piper says, "Hey, that's the priest." Kirsten has a hold of Allison's arm and is pulling Allison down the stairs. Jade and Elliot are standing on the second floor looking over. Allison yells, "Don't forget, Elliot. Remember what I said. It's not too late." And Elliot asks them not to hurt her.
Which I feel like their love is so strong that even though he's under a spell, there's a part of him that is aware still.
Yes. Piper and Phoebe see Father Trask walking up the stairs with the knife, they call it the poignard, in his hand, and they run off. Cut to Elliot's room. Jade is staring out the window, and Father Trask walks in holding the poignard up and in front of him. Jade turns around and says, "Father Trask." He says, "I banish thee back to the underworld, Hecate." Jade says, "Not today, Trask." And then behind him, Kirsten like appears. She like pops up like a gopher.
Yes. You know the little thing where like people will stand behind the couch and they'll do the little stare, like crouching down. You're going downstairs. That is what it reminded me of. Is like, oop, or going up an elevator. Oop. Yeah. Like, where did she come from?
How did Father Trask not see her? Was she slithering on the ground? And
yes. It was so random. Like, she could have at least like stepped from the side, but no, she literally goes upward. Yes. It's just great.
Yes. She turns into a demon, an ugly demon.
Yes.
And grabs him by the head and snaps his neck. And Jade tells her to get rid of him. In the kitchen, Phoebe and Piper are running up to a security guard, and Piper says, "He's after the bride, upstairs." And then they all hear a smash and run outside, and outside, Father Trask is lying on the driveway.
I also feel that, you know, Phoebe and Piper seen him going up the stairs with the dagger. Mm-hmm. Like, it was not an ordinary knife. Yeah. Like, in my mindset, I would almost be chasing after him, not going to find a security officer. Security guard, yeah. Like, being a witch, I'd be like, that's not normal. And then go. Because they could have used their powers or something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, even if they thought Jade wasn't innocent, like, they'd be protecting her if they followed him.
Exactly,
you know? Yeah, I don't know, dude. Makes no sense. As soon as I saw Trask, like, lying on the ground, like, as if he had committed suicide, I was like, where's Andy at? Andy finna have this case cracked wide open.
And then you hear his voice.
Yes, no, and then the police arrive, and Andy's there.
It was like you had a premonition.
Yeah, it was like I did. Phoebe, Piper, and Allison are all standing nearby watching the scene. Allison is crying. Piper hands her a tissue. And Piper says, "This is all kind of freaky, huh?" Allison says, "You have no idea." Phoebe says, "What my sister meant to say was, what's up with you and Elliot?"
Like, very direct. I love that about Phoebe.
Phoebe asks if she loves him, and Allison says, with all her heart. Phoebe is confused, and Allison says, "I've got to go," and she leaves. Piper says that this is so sad. They have to do something. They kind of ponder what they would do. Piper says, "We're good witches. It's our job to help." And Phoebe says, "I wouldn't be worrying about Allison's problem just yet." And she pats Piper's stomach.
Because Piper has yet to figure out what Phoebe's deal is.
We cut over to Andy and Morris. They're questioning Jade. She says, how many times do I have to go through this? And he says, until I'm sure I understand. Did you say Trask chased you to the window? She says, yes, with that big knife. He was saying the most horrific things, crazy things. He lunged at me. I screamed and I ducked. And the next thing I knew, he was dead. It was awful. Can I go now? I have like a million things to do before my wedding tomorrow. Morris says, sure. She walks away. Andy says, sorry, the dead man on your driveway is such an inconvenience. Morris says, welcome to the lifestyles of the rich and shameless.
I do feel like she played that role very well.
Yes.
Like, I mean, we know she's something.
Yes.
And the way she portrayed, like, entitled people. I mean, I don't know anyone that's very entitled, but, you know, just from reading and watching the movies, she played that very well.
Yes. Andy looks up at the broken window and says, look at that window, Morris. Look where Trask landed. Tell me how anyone could jump that far. And Morris makes a joke and says, that's why we get paid the medium bucks to figure it out. And I say that all the time, that I get paid the medium bucks. So I wonder if that's where I got it. Inside the house, Grace and Kirsten are on the second floor. Grace says, Kirsten, killing a priest was not part of our deal. Kirsten says, word of advice, you keep your eyes closed and your mouth shut. In 24 hours, Jade will be pregnant and this will all be over. Kirsten turns to leave, but Grace grabs her arm and says, if anything happens to my son, Elliot, and Kirsten tells her that she should have thought about that before she agreed to the arrangement. And then she says, let me remind you about one more thing, Mrs. Spencer. We're still on the second floor. And then she walks off.
Yes.
Oh my God.
Like, can a threat be any more of a threat?
Really?
She played that role very well too, though.
Yeah, she did.
Like, she gave off the bitch vibe. Yes. Big time.
Buckland's in Prue's office. Prue is sitting at her desk when Rex walks in. He asks if she wanted to see him, and she says, yes. I wanted to know what you wanted me to do with the fertility icon, the companion piece to the female icon, the one that he didn't want cataloged before. And Rex says, yeah, go ahead and tag this one for auction. That particular client only wanted the female icon. He says, it's a wedding gift, actually. Quite an exquisite one at that, for the Spencer bride. Prue says, Spencer, really? My sister's catering that wedding tomorrow. Rex says, small world. Is that the sister I met, Phoebe? And Prue tells him that she has another sister, but Phoebe is going to be helping. And Rex asks if she is also going to be there. Prue is confused. She's like, I don't do weddings. Also, not your business. Like,
yep.
And he says, I was just wondering how close you and your sisters were. Anyway, carry on. In Rex's office, Hannah is there and Rex walks in. Rex says, unfortunately, you're right. Fortunately, you're right. Prue will not be in attendance. Hannah asks if that means they can still go. Wild that they were invited. Mm-hmm. And Rex tells her that it's too risky, and he tells her not to pout. He says, I'm sure we can think of something to do. Perhaps we can go to a football match and watch some players get injured.
This part right here definitely gives me vibes like there's something, or they know something's going on.
Yeah, they're...
And the fact that they were like excited about watching people get injured.
Yeah. In Prue's office, she's squatting on the floor. She's holding the fertility icon, and she's peeling a sticky tag off of its, like, bits, you know?
It's artifact.
After its artifact. And he walks in and sees her, and he says, I'll come back when you're alone. She puts the icon back in the box, and she says, it's okay, I'm finished. Somebody just put a sticky inventory tag on his, and he says, artifact.
I love how she's like tripping over her tongue.
And she says, yeah, the artifact. I should know that word, shouldn't I? She says, where is your, he says, artifact? Right here. And he pulls out a large envelope and hands it to her. And he says, it's the knife I called you about. Thanks for seeing me on such short notice. She opens the envelope and she pulls out the poignard and looks at it. She says, it's exquisite. It's 14th century Italian. She reads the words engraved on the blade, which is in Latin, which I am not going to try to read. But it translates to, I shall not It translates to, I shall not rest until the demon is vanquished. She looks to her computer, trying to find more information about it, and asks if he found this at the crime scene. Andy said it was on the victim. It belonged to a priest. He was at the Grace Spencer estate. Prue questions that and says that Piper is catering the wedding there tomorrow. Andy says that he saw her and Phoebe, but not to worry because they're fine. A picture of Hecate appears on the computer, and Prue says, this can't be a coincidence, just out loud for anyone to hear. And Andy is so confused. He leans over the table to look, but Prue moves the computer so he can't see. Prue says, nothing, I'm just mumbling to myself. Do you mind if I keep this for a while? I would like to show it to Russell in armaments. I don't know how you say that. I would like to show it to Russell in armaments. Andy says, sure. And Prue stands up and leaves the room. Andy then walks around the desk and looks at the computer screen.
Like she scoots the computer away from him, but then doesn't get out of it.
Yeah, like doesn't close the screen at least. Yeah. Like anything.
Like, come on, Prue. You're better than that.
Yeah. In the manor kitchen, Phoebe is looking at a picture of Hecate in a book. Piper walks in holding a box of stuff. Piper says, I knew I wasn't crazy. Look at these matches. Look at these napkins. They all say Allison and Elliot, not Jade and Elliot. And look at this. It's Chef Moore's contract for the wedding. Up top, it says the wedding of Allison Michaels and Elliot Spencer. Allison is supposed to marry Elliot tomorrow, not Jade. Phoebe says that's probably why she was crying and wonders what happened. Piper says, can you imagine watching the man you love marry somebody else? Phoebe says no, and Piper says that means that they have to help her because they're the only ones who know, and they're the only ones who can. Phoebe turns to her and says, okay, I can't hold this in any longer. Your name isn't Piper, and that's good. The good news. You're really Hecate, queen of the underworld. You're pregnant with the demon child, which means I'm afraid I'll have to kill you.
I love when she says that. That was probably one of my favorite lines out of the whole episode because she says it so casually, like yes. No big deal. I have to kill my sister.
Piper is very confused, and Phoebe says, not to worry, you still have plenty of time. I still have to find the jeweled poignard to kill you with. See? And she shows Piper the picture, and then Prue walks in holding it. She says, are you talking about this? Phoebe says, the odds, Piper. What are the odds? Piper tells her that she's not pregnant, and both Prue and Phoebe say that that is great news. Phoebe says, you can live.
She does. I love it. Oh, she's my favorite.
But she's like, my premonition, my vision. And Prue is like, what did you see? Like, actually, did you see Piper? And Phoebe says, I saw her legs. Prue says, you never saw her face? Phoebe says, no. And Piper says, hello, bickering sisters. I am not pregnant, but I am in the room. Phoebe, how did you know I took a pregnancy test?
Why is she questioning this? We know this.
Phoebe admits to finding the box in the bathroom, and Piper says, you're supposed to take the trash out, not dig through it. Which was funny to me. Phoebe says it's not like that. It's exactly like that.
But she didn't actually dig. She
was
literally just picked it up.
It's right on top. Prue interrupts them and says, we have bigger problems to deal with. Cliff Notes version, the priest who was killed today, he belonged to a secret order pledged to stop Hecate. Piper says that that is what Father Trask had said when he came in, beware Hecate, and then he tried to kill Jade. Prue tells her that she's a demon. She comes to Earth every 200 years. She has to find an innocent, put him under a spell, and marry him in a sanctified wedding.
Which kind of makes me wonder, how did Grace come upon this?
Yeah, I wonder if she made a wish to Hecate and that was the payment.
Maybe, because she did mention, she said that she hadn't seen her in 20 years.
Yeah.
Or over 20 years.
Yeah, and she says, like, you could have wished for eternal beauty instead of wealth and power. So I wonder if she would, because at first I thought maybe, like, they were family, like they were related. Mm-hmm. But I think maybe Grace made the wish to Hecate.
Maybe.
Because Hecate is the queen of the underworld. So it wouldn't make sense for them to be related. But they never really say what happened.
No, like we don't know how their relationship came.
Yeah, I kind of wish we knew because I love lore, but whatever.
Yeah. Like a backstory, that's what we needed.
Yeah. Phoebe says that doesn't sound any different than most single women in the city. And Prue tells her that she needs Elliot to impregnate her. That way the child looks normal on the outside. Internally and mentally, the child is pure demon. Piper says, this is huge. A child born into the wealth and power of the Spencer family. Prue says, and I don't think it's a coincidence that you're catering the wedding. I think it's one of those things that we can look forward to as protectors of the innocent. Piper suggests that before they ruin the wedding and the career, they make sure that they are right. And then at the Spencer's house, Prue, Piper, and Phoebe are peeking through the window. And Jade and her bridesmaids are sitting on a bed. Jade is opening presents. She holds up some lingerie and says, this should make his assets rise. And they all kind of laugh. Prue says it looks like a normal bachelorette. It looks like a normal bachelorette party. Piper is shocked that they have barely touched the food. She says those deli trays took hours. Kirsten picks up the fertility icon and says, you know who this is from? They understand how important it is for you to get pregnant right away. She hands it to Jade, and Prue recognizes it, says it's from the auction house, which you would think would clue her in that Rex and Hannah are in on it.
Yeah.
But it doesn't. Whatever, I guess. But the door opens, and a pizza delivery guy walks in, and Piper is like, they ordered pizza?
She's so insulted.
Yes. The guy opens his pizza case and gets out a tape player and turns it on, and then he starts dancing because he is
a boombox.
A stripper. I thought it was small to be a boombox.
He's not even cute.
No, not really.
They could have done way better.
Well, they were he's gonna be on screen for 10 seconds because we're about to murder him.
Well, still.
Yeah. Kirsten says he looks good enough to eat, and then the women do proceed to murder him. You see Jade's talons on his chest as she scrapes him. Yeah. And
that solidified the sisters' confirmation of them being evil.
Yeah, but they just watch him die, which I thought was crazy.
Yeah.
Which I know they didn't really have a plan at that point, but
and what were they going to do? Because he's already kind of dead.
Yikes.
In a way. He did not put up a fight.
No.
He wasn't a small man.
No.
He could have put up a fight, but instead he's being drugged down. And I get it. She's supposed to be a goddess.
Yeah.
But make it worthwhile.
In the conservatory at the manor with the sisters, Prue says that we have to stop them. Phoebe says there's only one problem with our plan. We're assuming that Allison is going to be a willing accomplice. And Piper says that she still loves Elliot, so she will definitely be a willing accomplice. Prue says the Book of Shadows says that the spell can be broken by a declaration of love sealed with a kiss. Piper says it's really romantic. It's like a fairy tale. And she says, and once Elliot is out of her spell, Jade's out of luck. No wedding, no honeymoon night. Prue says, no honeymoon and no sex, no monster child spending alternate weekends with daddy. Which was funny, but also I felt unnecessary because we get it. They're not going to be on a honeymoon. You don't have to tell us that they're going to have sex on their honeymoon. I got it. Thank you.
Yeah, not everybody does.
I guess. A sad honeymoon. That's fine. Phoebe says, I still say we rely on our power of three thing and ex-nay the monster bride and her carnivorous bridesmaids. Piper says they're supposed to help people, not harm them. Okay, harm who? All you're harming is the monster and the demons. Irrelevant. And then maybe the spell will be broken because they'll be dead.
Yeah.
You don't know. Prue says that's exactly what they're going to do. She tells her that the two of them need to get Elliot, she'll get Allison, and then they'll meet together at the front gate no later than 2:30. She asks if everybody has their weapons. Piper grabs her phone, Prue grabs her phone, and Phoebe grabs the poignard. Prue says, I'll take that. She takes it from Phoebe.
And then Phoebe just grins, the grin she had. It was funny.
She says, it's time to shower, shampoo, and go kick some Hecate butt. And she leaves the room. And Phoebe says, did she just say shower? Then at the same time, they're like, the hot water. They chase after her.
Yes.
In church, in a room, Andy and Morris are looking around. Morris is on the phone. Morris says, okay, hey, thanks, hangs up the phone. And Andy asks if that was the ME report. Morris says it was officially a homicide. The priest's neck was broken before he went out the window. Andy says, I told you, he's cracking the case.
Yeah, he's got that intuition.
Morris says, so what? You're saying that little 120-pound bustling bride tossed him out the window? I don't think so. Andy suggests that they watch the security tapes and because they will show who did it. And Morris says that is a great idea. He gets a little notebook out of his coat pocket. And Andy's
put
like...
that on his to-do list.
Andy's like, I already had them sent to the station. He goes, yeah, you did, didn't you? And they leave.
Of course he did.
At the manor, the doorbell rings and Prue walks into the foyer and opens the door. And it is Allison. Prue tells her thanks for coming. And Allison says, you said it was important. And Prue shows her the napkin. Allison asks where she got it. And Prue says it won't take long. Back to the Spencer's house. Everyone is bustling around getting ready for the wedding with Phoebe and Piper there. And I need to talk about these outfits because unless they were a specific request from the couple, it is not appropriate for a vendor to wear a white jacket to a wedding. In the industry, we call it vendor black because all the vendors wear black. You do not wear
I've noticed
white
that though. Yeah.
to a wedding ever.
Like anyone, really.
No, unless the bride specifically requests that you wear that color, which is a very, very rare. Mm-hmm. It only happens if the bride is like wearing a different color.
Yeah, and everyone else could wear white.
Yes, the vendors should not be wearing white.
Like,
and
I can't
almost had an aneurysm when I saw it. I was like, what are you wearing?
And they were awkwardly made too.
Yeah, they had like shoulder pads.
Which are in style right now too.
They are. I do
but
like the shoulder pads.
It had like a tiny little button and it was like crop topped.
Yes.
It was fitting, crop topped blazer style. And that's not.
But also,
I wouldn't think that'd be comfortable.
Especially if you're the caterer, you wouldn't wear white because you're going to get food on your clothes. Mm-hmm. That does not make sense. It literally was bizarre.
Whoever did the costumes failed.
Facts. Should have called me. I'd have told them immediately. Black. Wear black.
Yes.
Usually they wear like chef coat kind of style. Or even like polo shirts, but not that. That was crazy. Maybe the rich people are in a different tax bracket than who are hiring me, but I have never seen that. Outside the Spencer's house. I already said that. Piper tells a guy to get the tray to the kitchen right away. And then she walks past another woman who's holding another tray of food, and she says, not in the sun, get an umbrella. And Phoebe says, correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't we trying to stop this wedding? She says, you're right, I just can't help myself. And that is me. I go to like other people's events as a guest, and I'm like bussing tables.
Girl.
Like, I just want it to be perfect. There are so many like friends and family members that have been like, Aleacia, do you want to do stuff at my wedding? Do you want to help me plan it? The only bummer of that is you never get to be a bridesmaid because they want you to plan their wedding. Mm-hmm. They don't want you to like be in it. And that's really sad. I just want to wear a bridesmaid's dress one time. My sister asked me to be in her wedding, so we'll see. I might get to wear a dress. Phoebe tells her to forget the food and come on. We go back to the Manor Conservatory with Prue and Allison. Allison is crying. She says everything was fine, right on schedule, until about 6 days ago. That's when Jade appeared out of nowhere and started working at the Spencer family business. And before I could say I do, I was out and she was in. End of story. Prue asks if she talked to Elliot, and Allison says that they wouldn't even let her see him. Allison says it wouldn't make a big difference anyway. The Elliot I know, the Elliot I love, isn't here anymore. Prue asks what if she told her that Elliot isn't himself because this woman has him put under a spell, so to speak. And she says, Allison, Elliot loves you, not Jade. Allison says, if that were true, I would be the one walking down the aisle today. Prue says, you still can be. All you have to do is crash your wedding. Allison is kind of shocked, and Prue says, it's not that crazy. The man you love is marrying someone else. Don't you want to do everything within your power to stop him? Allison says, it's not a fairy tale. Real life doesn't work that way. And Prue asks, what if she could get him back?
I kind of feel like that statement's not very true, because I feel that a lot of people would attempt to crash the wedding. If you are strongly feeling that they should not be together, you're going to do something about it.
Especially if you called off the wedding 6 days before the actual wedding. We were in love 6 days ago.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden you love somebody else. I'm at the wedding.
Yeah. There's going to be a scene.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be the center of attention.
Definitely. Prue asks if Allison will let her help And Allison says, you don't even know me. Why would you want to help me? Prue says, have you ever seen that television show where there's a woman who's an angel and she helps strangers every week? Allison says, I love that show. Prue says, don't get too excited. I'm nothing like that. But my sisters and I, we have special gifts, the kind you can't return. Let's just say we come from a very interesting family tree. If you'll trust me, we can bring you and Elliot together. We go back to the Spencer house in Elliot's room with Grace and Elliot. Grace is getting him ready for his big moment. She says, finally, your big day. And in the hallway, we see Phoebe and Piper. Kirsten comes out of her room. And Piper says, stripper eating bridesmaid ahead. Phoebe says, keep walking. And they walk up to Kirsten and say that they need to talk to Mr. Spencer. Kirsten says, no one sees the groom before the ceremony. Piper says, actually, that would be the bride. This will only take a minute. Kirsten says, what part of no did you not understand? And Piper says, the non-original part.
Her sassiness.
Yes. Mrs. Spencer, Grace, comes out of the room and asks if there's a problem. Phoebe says, ugh, don't even get me started. Piper asks if they can talk to her in private, and Grace asks if everything is all right. Piper says, it's about your son. He's not supposed to marry Jade. Grace says that she knows, and she knows more than they could possibly imagine. Piper says if they can help, they have a plan and they can stop the wedding. Grace whispers, go to the wine cellar. Wait for me there. I'll join you in 10 minutes. Kirsten looks over at them, and then a little bit louder, she says, I'm sorry, there's nothing I can do for you. And Piper and Phoebe walk off and go to the wine cellar. Phoebe says they have 30 minutes before the wedding. They're cutting it so close. And as they walk down the stairs, 2 bridesmaids walk in and turn into demons.
So is this a setup on Grace's part?
I don't know. I couldn't tell.
Yeah. Or was this just a random coincidence?
I think Kirsten heard them.
You think so?
I think so. Because she, turns to look. And I do think, Grace doesn't want this to, happen.
Yeah.
She doesn't want to.
I mean, she even had apologized to her son when you can clearly see that he was in a dazed state.
Yeah, she says, forgive me. And, out loud, I said, he is not going to forgive you.
No.
I wouldn't. Not if you were my mama. Phoebe tells Piper to freeze them, and Piper tries, but it doesn't work. And Phoebe says, it is working, look. And a fly is frozen in midair. She says, you have to be closer to the object you're trying to freeze. Piper says, forget it, just run.
She's like, I am not getting close.
Yes. At the police station, an officer puts a box of security tapes on Andy and Morris's desk. Morris picks up a tape and says, man, the Spencers sure go through a lot of security. He tosses the tape to Andy, and Andy says all those cameras should have picked up something from around the time the priest was killed. And Andy puts the tape into a VCR. And then we go back to the Spencer house. It's a lot of cut scenes in this episode.
Yeah.
But we're with Prue and Allison. Allison says, it's 2:40. Could we have missed them? Prue says that she hopes not. And in the wine cellar, Piper and Phoebe are sneaking around when Piper's phone rings. And she answers it really fast because the bridesmaids are oh, where are they at? Piper says, we're in the wine cellar, help. And then the line cuts. And in Jade's room, Grace, Jade, and Kirsten are all there. Jade is dressed in her wedding dress, and Kirsten hands her a present. She says, this is from me, you're something borrowed. She unwraps the present, and it's a book. She says, Faust, I love this. I read it the last time I was here. Here on Earth, I imagine. She said, what about my something blue? She looks over at Grace, who's crying, and says, you're right. Nothing's bluer than the heart of a mother giving away her only son.
Ouch.
Yikes. And they laugh at her, which is so mean.
It is.
Back at the police station, and I think it's just trying to show all these things are happening simultaneously, but it's hard for me to tell the audience what is all happening.
Also, I do kind of think that she set Piper and Phoebe up.
Oh, really?
Because it's been well over 10 minutes, and she said that she would meet them in the cellar in 10 minutes. And
she's crying in the room.
Yeah, that makes me think that maybe it was a setup.
Interesting.
I don't know. That's just my thoughts.
Or maybe Kirsten dragged her into the room with Jade and was like, you're staying in here until the time.
Yeah.
or we're going to kill you. We'll throw you out this window.
Could be, yeah.
Who's to say? At the police station, Andy and Morris are watching the security tapes on the TV, and Morris says it's just two women talking. You can't even hear them. Andy says, what? You don't read lips? He leans forward and says, something, killing a priest wasn't part of our deal. Morris says, man, you're good. Like, he just believes him. He's like,
goes with it.
That's what he said. That's what she said. At the Spencer house, the wedding has started. Jade is walking down the aisle. She stands next to Elliot, and they face the priest, and the priest starts the ceremony. In the wine cellar, Piper and Phoebe run up the stairs, and the demons follow them. The wedding has started without the bridesmaids. I just want to say that.
And the bride could care less.
And the bride does not care. That would never happen at any of my weddings. Future clients, just letting you know. Your bridesmaids will be there, or I will cry. Phoebe says, okay, they're really close now. Freeze them. And Piper does. And then Prue comes in, tells them to duck, and then uses her power on the demons, and they fly into the wine boxes. Prue asks if they're okay. Phoebe says yes, and tells her nice timing. Piper asks where Allison is, and Prue says she's upstairs, and they all go back to the wedding. The priest is saying, if there's anyone here who knows of a reason that these two should not be joined, speak now or forever hold your peace. And Piper says, we have a reason. Allison says, I love you, Elliot. And Jade says, why, you little witch. And Piper says, hey.
So offended.
Jade says, by Asteria and Perseus, open the sky and do your worst. And she holds her hands up to the sky, and then you see dark clouds swirling and lightning. The lightning was terribly CGI'd in, but dark clouds and lightning. And she pulls Elliot, tells him that she's coming with them. He's coming with her. It gets very windy and storming. All the guests start running. Andy and Morris pull up in the car. Andy says, well, isn't this exciting? I wonder what's going on here.
I like how they just parked.
Yeah.
Right at the gate.
They're police officers. They do whatever they want. I wish they would have been there for the spell part, though. If they would have been there, just 30 seconds sooner.
And, she did it in front of all the guests, which I'm assuming some of the guests are probably demons or witches or something.
Yeah.
Because of the list of all those that wanted to witness her demon baby to be born.
Yeah.
But, some of them I wouldn't think would be anything but human.
Yeah. Same. In Elliot's bedroom with Elliot and Jade, Jade turns into Hecate. Piper, Prue, and Phoebe all walk in, and 3 demons push them into the room. Prue says, all right, quick, we have to banish them back to the underworld. She looks in her purse and says, the poignard, it's gone. And Elliot picks it up off the floor. The poignard starts glowing, and Piper tells Prue to do something. Prue uses her powers, and all the demons get sucked into the knife. And Elliot says, whoever you 3 are, thank you. So, yes, the spell is broken without True Love's kiss because they did not get to that point.
But I don't feel like Prue, Piper, or Phoebe did anything.
They really didn't.
He pointed it at them, and then they get sucked into the sword.
Yeah, it was pretty anticlimactic, honestly.
Yeah, but my thought on that is, why didn't it work when the priest did that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Did they all have to be present, maybe?
Maybe. I do not know. They did not explain the spell very well. And It was very anticlimactic.
Or maybe it was because Elliot, had true love. Maybe that was the key.
Maybe, because Elliot's spell had already been broken, I guess.
Or
whenever
there
he
was a crack
saw
in it.
Allison. Yeah, I don't know. But outside the Spencer house, Elliot and Allison are hugging and kissing. And Prue, Piper, and Phoebe are nearby. Prue says, we did that. And Phoebe says, and they'll live happily ever after. Piper wonders if they will and says, you never greet your husband at the door with, honey, I think I froze the kids. Prue says, no, I've just accidentally moved them to another zip code. Phoebe says, but I will see them, find them, and bring them back safely. I can never learn to control my powers.
This little section here was the best part out of the whole episode.
It was very funny.
Yes, it was great. They piggybacked off of each other's faults. It's oh no. We'll get it. It's fine.
Phoebe says, just think of the obstacles that Allison and Elliot have overcome. If they can do it, so can we. Prue says, I guess true love does conquer all. And Phoebe jokes that it does if they have separate bathrooms. Then Andy walks towards them, and says, fancy seeing you here. Prue says, yeah, isn't it? She holds up the poignard and says, I wanted to give this back to you. I'm finished with it. He says, how'd you know I'd be here?
Mm-hmm. He was sus of her.
Yeah. She says, I didn't. I was going to drop it off after the wedding, so I just brought it with me to the wedding and didn't leave it in my car.
But she also doesn't explain why she's there.
Yeah. He asks if they can talk about it in private, and then he puts his arm around Prue and they walk away. Phoebe asks if Piper believes in destiny, and they kind of laugh. And Piper says he believes in destiny. And that is the end of the episode. So, Elizabeth, who is your witch of the week?
So I picked Phoebe just because I feel like she had the most funny lines out of the episode.
Very nice, very nice.
What about you? Who's your witch of the week?
I picked Piper because she had the most stress because she was basically running this whole dang wedding.
And you can relate to her.
And I can relate to that.
You felt her.
I would cry if I had to solve this magical spell mystery while I'm trying to do a wedding. That sounds horrible, actually.
You've got enough stress on your plate.
But
the rest.
You know, she was like trying to figure out the mystery and do her job to the best of her ability, and she had like a lot of external pressure and stuff. So I picked her as my witch of the week.
Well, that is it for today's episode of Spells and Spoilers. Thanks for hanging out with us. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode, and follow us on Instagram at Spells and Spoilers and TikTok at Spells and Spoilers Pod for more. We'll be back next time with more supernatural fun. See you then.
Bye.